All right, hello and welcome back to episode number 9 of 2 Bits and Cents Investing. As always, I'm here with Robert. Robert, how's it going? Do you want to
Doing
know?
good, man. My wallet, not so much, but I'm doing well.
So today is February 23rd here, and today was a pretty rough day in the stock market. There's been just some general corrections, I think. We've been riding high for a while. And for anybody who knows or is new to investing, this is kind of how it goes. You can't just have stocks go up forever. It doesn't stick with the value of the company that the stock is pointing to. So these things do happen, but today we want to talk about something special. We've alluded to it before, which is CCIV, Churchill Capital, number 4, and their SPAC involvement with Lucid Motors, which was just announced.
Yep, it was formalized last night, and it hit the SEC market first thing this morning, which ended up giving a massive nosedive to the stock price. Went from almost 65 this morning down to about 38. Recovered a little bit in early morning trading, but kind of stayed the rest of the way for the rest of the day. Didn't do too much, but all in all, there was a lot of others that took major hits as well.
Yeah, it wasn't just CCIV.
No, it definitely was not. Tesla is down to 695, which is now officially the lowest they've been since they entered the S&P 500 back in mid or early December, whenever it was. So, I mean, everybody's taking a hit.
Right.
And a friend of ours in the investing group said, has the bubble burst? And I think, no, I think we just let a little bit of hot air out.
Yeah.
I think we've had a little bit of market correction, and I think that we're getting ready now to really start to buckle down.
Yeah,
But
I think this is not a bad thing at all. And in general, what has happened should happen on occasion. It's like here in San Diego, we have earthquakes. So if you have a little earthquake, those are good. What you don't want is you don't want massive bubbles. You don't want massive things. You want corrections to keep
here
things
in
kind of in
Houston,
check.
we have snow,
Yeah,
lots and lots of snow,
yeah, that
which
is a
doesn't
topic
usually
for.
happen.
It's just been crazy. So everybody out there, it's been a rough time. Not to mention we're still in a pandemic and everything else. So
Yeah.
so what a way to start 2021. But let's talk about CCIV in general. So for people who aren't been keeping up, CCIV, the ticker symbol that will become Lucid Motors post merge, was trading at $60 a share yesterday. Now they're down to 35. So we both have bought shares of CCIV. First and foremost, this is a speculative thing. If you bought CCIV before yesterday, you were speculating because it wasn't even confirmed that we would have a agreement. So what ended up happening is you're buying on speculation. So that's a gamble. That's really not investing because, to be honest, today they could have said, actually, no, that was a rumor. We were never looking at CCIV, and
We were
Lucid
going
Motors
with
is going
AT&T
another
like
way.
we originally said we were going to.
That would have been a stinker. That
We,
is not a business
we,
I'm
we all
interested
know
in.
that was not going to happen, but yes.
Right. So let's break this down in terms of like for people watching this, right? There's a lot of people who made money. I had a lot of money on paper yesterday that's kind of gone today, but I am still a little bit up. Most of my gains have been wiped out. But again, you got to remember, if you're speculating and stuff, that doesn't mean you can't put a little bit of couple of percent here and there for fun to kind of speculate because people speculate. When you're prospecting for gold, you speculate where it might be, and as long as you're keeping it within the realm of possibility in terms of what you can afford, you're okay. Please do not gamble your life savings. There's a reason why we haven't been talking about CCIV over and over on this channel because that's not where we are. If you're looking for speculative stuff, there's a lot of YouTube channels out there. We're trying to be investors. We want to invest in the future that we want to see, and Lucid Motors making EVs, the Lucid Air especially, is a future I want to see. So let's talk about the kind of the terms of the deal. The shareholders of CCIV were going to contribute $2 billion in cash, which is going to translate to about 16.7% of the shares of Lucid Motors in the future. PIPE, which is private investment in public equity, is a
Yeah.
second round of fundraising, if you will. So the PIPE investors will contribute $1.5 billion and get 12.5% of the shares at a valuation of $24 billion. So part of the controversy here is typically if you're a SPAC investor, you want the valuation to be really low. That way you purchase a larger percentage of the company. And if you're a PIPE investor, it's the opposite. So there's various factions at play. And let's not forget that the Lucid shareholders will get the other lion's share of that deal.
67%, yeah.
Right. So so to put this into context, if the shares of Lucid Motors were trading at $35, that computes like a $50 billion market cap. So to put that in perspective, Ford Motor Company, which has been around for a very long time and sells hundreds of car models and millions of cars a year, has a market cap of 46 billion. Now, to be fair, Ford has debt and old legacy factories that they got to retool, and so you can say that their assets are kind of a liability just as much as they are assets. Whereas Lucid is coming in fresh. They have one plant. It's a brand new, state of the art, 1 month old factory.
First ever
Greenfield.
custom built EV purpose built facility. They didn't
Right.
retrofit. They didn't do anything. AMP1 is a brand new state of the art facility.
Let's not focus on that. But as far as like the value of a company, that's kind of up to you. Ford even has like pension debts and obligations, and they have a lot of baggage, which doesn't help their case. But and also as being an EV player and a technology player, the goal is that you have higher valuations and maybe a higher P/E ratio and trade at a higher multiple. So all that being said, what will happen with the SPAC tomorrow? I don't really want to speculate. I don't think we need to get into that too much. But to be honest, now it's post-merger talk. We now know it's going to happen. And there's going to be, I think, more bubbles and stuff that will even happen now. Because there's going to be people who are trying to buy in and see what happens. Because like typically IPOs will spike. QuantumScape did this recently, and all of them do. I remember when I bought Tesla in 2010, there was a big spike, and I kind of made some money, and I sold some of it and kept some of it. It happens. That's just a speculative thing. People want to get in. There's a fear of missing out and everything else. They've raised $4 billion, $2 billion between the CCIV investors and from Klein, and also another $2 billion, $2.5 billion in the PIPE investment round. And so they now have cash on hand, but that does dilute the shares. And I believe the number is 1.6 billion is the number of shares outstanding. So remember this too. If you bought CCIV yesterday or a week ago, you were buying shares of a company you believed would become Lucid Motors with no idea of the number of outstanding shares. If you had one of a million shares, you had a huge amount of the company. If you had one of a billion shares, not so much. So the point is, that was all speculative. And in the future, leave us your comments if you like. We can talk to you guys about it. But you got to minimize speculation to some small margin of your investment portfolio and not risk the farm. I've heard of stories of people losing like $1 million today because they went all in, sold everything, and bought CCIV. That kind of stuff. Please don't do that. It is not smart. And don't fall into the trap of listening to people on YouTube telling you to pump and dump. Don't do that kind of stuff. Buy companies long term. So now let's get into Lucid Motors long term. If you buy Lucid Motors from today on, you should be a value investor. Don't buy on speculation at this point, right? So let's jump into the deck. Let's talk about their deck and what we think. All right?
Yeah.
So
this is coming directly from their investor deck. So they released this right after they made their announcement.
Yep.
And they came through. It was on a Zoom call with Klein and with Richardson, and they came on and they said, this is everything that we've got, and basically laid it on the line to sell the company to what it is. So
let's talk about this. Here we got Peter Rawlinson, who's the CEO. He was formerly an engineer at Lotus, which is when Elon found him and recruited him. Before that, he was at Jaguar. He then went on to Tesla, and now is the CEO and CTO of Lucid Motors. I'm a big fan of Peter Rawlinson. I think he's a great dude. He's an engineer, and I love companies led by engineers. Derek Jenkins, I've also had a chance to meet. I'll put links to our videos where I talk to him. But he's from Audi and Mazda. And then Michael Smuts from Ford is their vice president of finance. So let's jump into the fun stuff. So the marketing position. So I think the first slide, really great, great look and feel. This is I think a Mercedes or a Mercedes Maybach, which is kind of how they do Maybach now. And compared to the Lucid, I still maintain it's a beautiful car.
It's very clear exactly who they're targeting with this this slide. There's only one person they're targeting with it, and that's Tesla. I'm sorry. I'm not going to call Lucid a Tesla killer because they're playing in a different round altogether.
The idea here, innovative but not luxury. What they're saying is that Teslas aren't really about luxury. It's kind of true. My car is a single tone, vegan leather, right, minimalistic. But to me, it's beautiful and I love it. But if you're buying a Mercedes S-Class, potentially a Tesla is not going to be a direct equivalent in terms of the luxury of materials and that sort of thing. So they're posing themselves as a post-luxury brand, which makes sense. But at the same time, Tesla's over there in the corner for a reason, because they know they have to answer the elephant in the room, which is how do you compare with Tesla? So let's just kind of keep digging into this. This is good. I love You see the color, the warmth, like the kind of the warmer brown shades and stuff. They're
It's really, I mean, the photography team. Hats off to the photography team
yeah,
for some of the artwork that they come out with. It is absolutely amazing.
it is. By the
So
way, you see these rims right here? I saw these in person at their dealership, at their showroom when I went to have a tour. These are the most beautiful aero wheels I've ever seen. That black area that you can't really see here is largely built to be very aerodynamic. So even though these are probably 21 or 22-inch rims, the aerodynamic properties are way higher than you might think and way better looking than some of the other. You see here, you can kind of see it more in this picture. But this aero rim is part of how they get that range, like for sure. So again, to the space concept and this idea of the captain's chairs in the back and the kind of luxury executive seating, these are the kinds of things that they're trying to go after. Here's a look at the BMW 7 Series, the Mercedes S-Class, and the Lucid in between. A little bit smaller than those two. It's probably closer to an E-Class. But, I mean, stunning. Look at those cars. I think the
yeah,
Air is the best looking. So this is the marketing. They're trying to make it clear this is what we're trying to do because they haven't made any cars yet. Let's be honest about this first and foremost. So again, the kind of the cabin and stuff. We'll put links to my video. I have a lot of footage from inside the car. It really is a beautiful interior. And then some of the cool stuff they've got this drag coefficient of 0.21, which Tesla has claimed that they've got that beat now with the Plaid Model S. But I mean, look at this. They lapped Laguna Seca and set some records and stuff. So here, this is the first slide they talk about the efficiency of the car. And really, the Lucid Air has an efficiency number very similar to the Model S, actually. The Model 3, and better than the Model S. So the Model S is going to get better with the Plaid additions now because they have the new front fascia, the aerodynamics are better, and some other improvements they've made. They're going to get more competitive. But
I just like the next one that's even remotely in line with it is the I-Pace and then the Taycan, then the e-tron. And I do like that they include the R1T from Rivian there, just to give you a future-proofing idea. But the fact that it's almost half between the Tesla to the I-Pace really tells you that they are setting themselves on a really high podium.
Yeah. There's going to be a theme in this video, which is we need to break I've heard a lot of people talking smack about this investor, kind of the business angle that they have. So here's what I want to do. I want to break this down in two ways. As an engineer, talking about the engineering side of the building, of the business, and then let's talk about this as the investor relations and this whole slide deck and the kind of the business part of it. Let's break that out. First and foremost, their engineering teams are no joke. We'll get to a slide talking about their IP and their patents and stuff, but these numbers are, first of all, they're very realistic. It's not like they're claiming to be outlandish, and we know Tesla's going to be very competitive, but this is their first car. Tesla's had years to do this, so they're showing off that they're good at this and they understand the name of the game, which a lot of people I don't think understand. Look at some of these cars. Now the I-Pace is a little bit of a bigger car. The Rivian's a truck, so you have horrible aerodynamics around the trunk bed and stuff. But look at this. This is a look at the different cars and the ranges. You can see that the range for the Air is going to be, pretty much in line with the Model S Plaid Plus, which will have a 500 plus range as well. But these two cars are going to be duking it out. And here again, they jump right back to the luxury comparisons. They talk about the price and the horsepower. And again, electric cars are going to kill gas cars in this area. And this is why I think the marketing is brilliant. Don't buy a Lucid Air instead of a Tesla. Buy a Lucid Air instead of a Mercedes S-Class because it'll be faster. It'll just make the Mercedes look like a dinosaur. That I think is smart. And yeah, the numbers are ludicrous. I mean, look at the prices. And, this is the Grand Touring puts you in kind of the Model S Plaid Plus territory. And the Plaid Plus is going to be a little more powerful, I think. The Dream Edition is going to be probably closer to the Plaid Plus, but a little bit more money. And all the way down to 69, which is probably what the Model S base class is going to be around.
Yeah.
Project Gravity, you got to show the future because you're not selling one car, you're selling a company. So the company's vision is that the Gravity, which will be the SUV, will be coming out later on in 2023. You got to show that in the slide deck because if you're an investor, you got to see the full picture. And they're going to do.
You got to see what's coming down the pipeline.
Exactly. And the next 10 years after that, this is kind of their lineup. This is kind of like what Tesla was doing 10 years ago, right? This is the Model S. That's the Model X, pretty much. So, also, kind of taking a play from Tesla's playbook, they're showing off their ESS, which is their energy storage systems. They're going to be doing stuff like the Powerwall. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So the nice thing about that is they're actually going to start. They're doing the same thing, and I've noticed this actually with a lot of other companies. So Rivian also announced that they were going to kind of be doing an ESS Powerwall type deal. Um, Altus, the truck company, they're actually halting development on the truck to actually focus on the ESS, to actually have it ready so that they can actually use that as the building block. So there's a lot of the EV markets that are actually getting into the ESS grid first, because it's a much more stringent demand on the batteries, and if you can push it through the ESS system, then you can push it through on a vehicle a lot better than you can on otherwise.
This is a smart move. This is a advantage that EV companies have that gas companies don't. You don't see like Honda and Toyota selling a gas engine generator for power outages and stuff. But if you're an EV maker and you make really good battery packs and inverters and all the other electronics, then you can make battery packs. So imagine if you're Lucid and you got to build this huge factory and you got to spend tons of money to get a car ready. Well, what if they can start shipping ESSs this year to start bringing in revenue? That would be really helpful, especially if you're trying to pitch this company as being profitable as soon as possible to show some revenue before like the Lucid Air reaches full rate production. This gives them another revenue stream. So I think that's a really easy move. And after what's been happening in Texas and just generally, I think it's a really smart move as well. Really good.
Well, so I want to touch on that real quickly, Ricky, because I mean the technology supplier. If you go back to that slide, they actually hit on something that's actually really vital. I think is that they have been working as an OEM racing team manufacturer. Formula E, for those of you that don't know, there's Formula One, which is the pinnacle motorsport racing league out there. Has a sister called Formula E, which is Formula Electric. Lucid actually supplied the battery packs for the Formula E teams. All the Formula E teams used Lucid Motor battery packs using their batteries and their BMSs. So their control systems are already vetted out and ready. We're going to talk more about that here a little later on because we're going to come back to it. But I mean, the fact is they've got that already built out, and they've already got that power development system going. And there's no better way to test a system than to put it on a racetrack. Henry Ford did it himself. If you want to test something, race it. I guarantee it's going to break.
Yeah, very good point. Formula E seasons 1 through 4 didn't have Lucid's pack. And what ended up happening is they couldn't get a car that had enough range to last an entire race. So what they would do is drive one car and then jump out of that car and jump into another car to finish the race because these batteries wouldn't last. Seasons 5 and 6, Lucid Motors provides the battery pack and technology. And as a result, now you can last the entire race. So talk about hugely important for the sport. I mean, you cannot have a sport if you're jumping out and swapping out cars because it's not feasible to go one entire race with one battery pack. So Lucid is doing some big stuff there, and again, a revenue stream before the Air, right? This is important because again, we don't know when the Air is going to ship. I think I've heard delays that it's not going to be until maybe later in 2021 this year, not in springtime frame. So knowing all that, just keep in mind that there is some revenue, but there's a long way to go. Again, let's talk about some of this stuff. I have a video that I did. I dove into it. I trust Robert. You watched my video. But
of course I did. I think I was like the number 2 or number 3 like on it.
So their tech again is the real deal here, guys. You know, they've got the bidirectional, the Wonder Box, which handles a huge range of voltages and DC inverting, converting, and AC DC inverting, all that stuff. They handle it all, and they've got some really nice, probably some IP around some of that stuff. And they've got
the thing I like about their Wonder Box as well, Ricky, is the fact that they do have V2G. Right. They've got that already built in. So, and I think that's, part of it, we're going to talk about it later on, but for at-home charging, they need 20 kilowatts of in-home charging. And for those of you that do the math, you realize really quickly, that's a 90 amp, 240 volt breaker that they need. Right. So that's where that back power grid comes in. And that's where that's going to give them, that extra, revenue stream to when you've got your car parked there. How do you get it to go through? So
Yeah, exactly. So here, another thing about their motor assembly, just the motor inverter, the transmission, all that is incredibly packaged, incredibly well. The power to weight, if you will, the driving and power to weight ratio is 9. So 9 horsepower per kilogram for the air. And just if you look at the
I do
numbers,
like the little bit of shade that they throw towards the next American EV brand.
yeah,
At
but again, this is
3.2.
all before Plaid, so I'm really curious to see how some of this stuff changes if Tesla is doing stuff because they have a tri-motor configuration as well now, and there might be some changes there. But
Yeah.
900 volt architecture, really good cooling, and if they're delivering power to higher voltage, less current, possibly less heat to the entire assembly, less cooling requirements and stuff, that's kind of how you get there. So they've
Well,
thought about
they're
this.
definitely going to have a more efficient system because they are running in the 900 volt architecture. So they're going to be running less current. They're going to be cooler, I should
More
say.
efficient.
So they can be more efficient because heat is your number one enemy. Not your energy, it's your enemy in regards to everything else. If you can keep your heat under control, you can keep your batteries happy. So
Yep. And if you can't, then the BMS comes in and says, yep, not so fast, reduces charge rate or output and degrades performance. So absolutely. So those are some of the benefits. Their engineering, I think their power electronics, their motors, their inverters and stuff. I think there's a lot of IP. We'll get to that as soon as the slide comes up. That is legit and real deal. Now let's talk about something I don't think is a benefit or an advantage. And that is their charging. Here they've got this claimed 20 minutes, 300 miles in 20 minutes claim. That's theoretically true with the Electrify America network being able to support over 300 kilowatt, potentially even 350 kilowatt, I think EA goes up to. But here's the thing. I had the Ford Mach-E, we'll have a video out shortly about that, and I had the chance to use the Electrify America network. I was not impressed. More than half the stalls were down. Again, this is a very small data set, so I will keep at this, but half the stalls were down. I saw a Windows 7 Embedded Edition crash screen and a BIOS boot screen. It's just not a good look. So
I mean, I'll talk to that as well because so with my Zero, with my new job, I've been commuting back and forth, and I actually about a week ago I needed to stop at a Walmart and charge up, and I had to plug into Electrify America. There's 4 chargers. Of the 4, there were 3 cones in front of 3 of them because they were all down for maintenance. The screens were turned off. You couldn't use them. So I'm really not impressed with Electrify America. Again, it's one of 2 chargers that I've used. The other one worked great, so 50% chance of it working. But I mean, it's take and miss, and for that I kind of gotta put a little bit of a thorn inside. So
yeah, you're totally right. I've done 10,000 miles in road tripping now on the Tesla Supercharger network, and it is a dream. I've had maybe one issue in all that time. So this is a huge sticking point. This is probably a good time to get to this. Peter Rawlinson, who is one of the reasons why I'm bullish on Lucid. I really like Peter Rawlinson as a CEO and CTO. He mentioned something really interesting, and it's something I've been thinking about. I think I alluded to it in my video, which is Lucid has the benefit of second mover advantage. We always hear about first mover advantage. Tesla has a ton of it, right? They were the first, meaning if you want to go electric, there was no other game in town. So there's huge levels of first mover advantage. But there is some second mover advantage. One of the examples will be the charging network. Tesla literally had no choice but to go install chargers around because there was no other way to get around. So you either buy a Model S with 300 miles of range to drive to LA by charging along their supercharger network, or you don't buy one because you couldn't. They don't have this problem because Electrify America, as crummy or as much improvement as needed, it is going to improve over the next 4 or 5 years. And there's going to be a ton of new players. There's going to be Blink and ChargePoint. We've talked about some of these guys. And so the charging infrastructure is going to be ahead of Lucid. Lucid doesn't have to bury their money into this like Tesla did. So building these stations, I did some numbers. For Tesla, it costs about $500,000, $500,000 sometimes to build a new station. And it could be upwards from there depending on land right usages and other considerations and permitting processes. And you're buying electricity for, let's say in California for 30 cents and you're selling it for 37 cents on the supercharger. You're not making a ton of money. The margins are pretty small. And there's a huge amount of capital expenditure to start. so the capex is high to begin with. And then you got to have people coming around to maintain it, right? You're dealing with huge levels of AC, maybe 900 volt alternating current to direct current inverting. You're dealing with like huge levels of voltage and current. These are huge systems. And if you've seen the Tesla's V3 chargers, there's big boxes all around before the supercharger. The supercharger is a pretty little unit, but all the heavy lifting is being done in those big boxes back there where there's huge inverters. And Electrify America is going to have the same sort of thing.
How much your heat you're putting off in those, because you're taking 480, 960 volts AC, and you're translating that into DC power through rectifiers. Those diodes, they're oil cooled, but still it takes a lot of power to get through them. And you're going to lose some efficiency through heat. So
yep, exactly. We'll get back to that and we'll talk about some of their IP stuff. But if we keep going, here they talk about some of the sensors. In my video, I do talk about they have a huge suite of cameras. They have LiDAR. They have long and short range radar. And so they have a huge suite of sensors. Now, what is missing in this deck is they don't mention their Mobileye partnership anywhere. And I found out about that on their website, and I mentioned it in my video, but there's no mention of it. The reason why I think that's interesting is because they have a lot of job positions for ADAS, which is Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, which is really what the step one. It's Tesla Autopilot compared to full self-driving. They have a ton of job positions open for that. So I'm wondering, are they going to be teaming up with Mobileye, but with the goal of maybe doing it all themselves in the near term? I really need to look into that more, but that's something I need to know a lot more about, because part of Tesla's appeal and market cap and their ratios and the multiples that they trade at is the promise of full self-driving cars. And so Lucid has a lot to answer in that regard when it comes to where they stand on that. So I want to hear more about that, and it's kind of lacking here. You want to talk about the portfolio of patents here?
Oh, yeah. So, you got 403 patents that they have developed and applied for. 80% of those, they've already been awarded. So they're not, just throwing smoke. They've actually got these patents in hand. Now, what they are doing differently than Tesla is Tesla made all of theirs free. They released the source to it so that anyone can do that. We haven't heard confirmation of whether or not Lucid is going to do the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they let some of them go free, just to help build the EV infrastructure around the world. But you look at this, 155 on the powertrain alone, 61 on the HVAC, which is incredible. It makes me think that they're actually doing something a little bit more intelligent with the HVAC than Tesla did, making it shrink even smaller, which means they could, in fact, have another revenue stream of the home HVAC system, which Tesla has been alluding to. That could be, a great game changer for them. If they got this super efficient HVAC system, they may bring it to the house market to help with that. 5 patents on the chassis alone. That, of course, you can pretty much guess what those 5 are going to be. 45 non-utility. So that's 44 design and aesthetically pleasing, non-utilitarian purpose patents that they've been issued. So they've definitely hunkered down. They're definitely strapping in for the long run to get those patents to go through the way they need to. So.
Yeah, and this is where I think it's important to remember, like the engineering team, like Lucid Motors, the car company that is trying to build the car, in a lot of ways is different than the business team, if you will, trying to raise funds and trying to find a way to pay for it all. Because those are two things that both need to happen. So we'll talk about the business part in a second here, but the engineering team, top notch, I really do think. I think they know what they're doing. They have seen what Tesla has done. They've figured out where they can improve. They've done some improvements. They've pushed Tesla as well. And they've got the patents and the tech and the IP, the expertise, the engineers. They have like 2,000 employees, which is a good size at this point where they are. And they've got the right stuff, if you will. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Here, I want you talking about this. You're Mr. Industrial Design here. Tell me about this. Why does this matter?
So this is really interesting, and I'm actually held to an NDA, so I can't disclose much about it. But it is really interesting that they're the way that they're going to do their mass injection, and it is mass injection. So they're going to do basically they're going to do an injection molded around the battery. They're also going to integrate the battery cells and the battery holders and the bus bars into that injection molding. Um, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they actually, keep that going. And of course, the top piece is a snap-on metal piece, so there is some serviceability there, for if some of those cells break. But that means there's less parts to go into it. There's more efficiency, which means they can get that production value out of it. They can get the higher production out of it, and they can get it more efficiently. So this leads me to think that they're actually going to do more automation for the assembly, for the battery packs and for the drivetrain and for the electronic systems versus not. So
Interesting. Okay, because they mentioned there on the left that they're going to make this available to other OEMs. Again, this might be an early play to be able to fund themselves until the Air is at kind of a full rate production. But also there's the ESS, their energy storage system for homes and stuff. So okay,
yeah, I mean the thing is, you look at that battery pack design. It's a nice square battery pack design, which lends itself perfectly to an ESS stack up of just having these guys just drop left, right, and center in a big grid pattern and just fill up basically just a big Lucid on its end and fill it up. So that'll be great. I mean, that also could lend itself to maybe a semi version as well if they wanted to go after that market. They've got the capacity for the battery capacity to handle it, and they got the power to handle it. But it's whether or not they could actually get it into a form factor to actually make it go for their drivetrain. That would be really interesting.
Right.
So,
you can see here, there's the cooling ribbons, probably the in and out. So they're going to have cooling ribbons, kind of like what Tesla's got. And I'm speculating here, and you don't have to say anything, but I'm thinking there might not be, you might not be soldering these leads. It might just be a press fit to get the batteries in series in parallel. But we shall see.
We'll
I'm speculating
see.
there. Yep. So now, again, I hope I'm being clear about this idea that there's different parts of the business, right? There's the engineering, and then there's the marketing and the business part of this company. And it's really important because now we can talk about kind of where they're at. So first of all, their warehouses and their design aesthetic is gorgeous. If you have a chance to visit one of these Lucid studios, is what they call them, you got to check it out. They really have done a good job of positioning themselves as a premium brand. Here are the locations. I've been to the Lucid HQ in Newark and the Valley Fair Mall in San Jose. Beautiful, beautiful locations. And there's a couple others here, LA and Miami and West Palm Beach, where EVs are pretty hot. And then they've got a whole slew of new ones kind of planned. Nothing in Texas yet. Texas doesn't allow direct sales, so that they got to get their act together for that. Robert, I trust you'll take care of that.
Yeah, I'll get right on that. I'll just hop on down and we'll have a chat in the state. But I mean, the thing about that is Tesla has broken the ground. Again, back to what you were saying about second market. Tesla has broken a lot of the ground to allow direct sales to occur. So it'll be really interesting to see how they handle that coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, Tesla's fought a lot of battles already. You got to give Tesla just mad props, man. That company made all this possible, and they should get a ton of credit. They have some kind of virtual reality experiences and stuff, really cool stuff to kind of show off the car. I think it'll be fun. Here, you mentioned previously about their home charging. So my Tesla pulls about 8 to 9 kilowatts from the Gen 1 charger that came with that I bought. That was for the original Model S's. They're a little bit thicker wire. This is claiming a fair bit more.
10 to 20 kilowatts. I mean, you do the math on that. And for those of you that wanted to step through the math, 20 kilowatts divided by 240 volts, which is, nominal high voltage here in the US, is 83 amps. you take that and you add a little bit of a safety factor, you're
Yeah.
looking at a 90 amp circuit breaker just to charge this thing. But I think that's also where the Wonderbox and the V2G is going to come in, because that's going to give them the ability to backfeed into their systems. And that's where you're going to have the ability to really utilize that super high 900 volt architecture to the best of its ability. I think that Wonderbox and that V2G and the bidirectional, which of course we have to state, bidirectional, this will be the first bidirectional system out there for the US marketplace. I can already hear the commenters in the bottom saying, well, Nissan's already got it. No, Nissan has it in Japan and in Asia. This will be the first one here in the United States.
Good to know.
Which would be really big. It's going to be big, and I think it's going to open the door for a lot of V2G here in the States for everything else.
So one more thing about the 900 volt architecture here. I think that is going to lend itself to why this is possible. So if you kind of do a little bit of investigation into the electrical engineering world, you know that you need a big inverter. The higher the voltage and the more current you're trying to push through it. So that's why, like DC fast chargers, they offload the need for the inverter from the car and instead just feed DC. So you do all the inverting in a big box somewhere on the ground, and you send DC down the wire straight to the battery pack. That's how you get fast charging. So when you plug it into a wall, though, like they're saying here, the 10 and 20 kilowatt charging at home, the inverter in the air is doing that. And I believe the higher voltage is what makes that possible. I think as you're inverting at, let's say, a higher voltage, you're able to do so at a lower current and potentially try to get up higher. I don't believe my Tesla could charge like this, because I think the inverter would be limited at that point. But again, a little bit of speculation.
We can have the inverter capability there, and it's got to be able to handle that higher voltage input to translate it. I mean, it's all a give and take game. And it's also managing the thermals, both of the inverter, of the batteries, and also the rest of the charging system. Because you can charge it as high as you want, but if you can't keep it cool and you can't keep it under thermal control, then you're going to have some serious issues to begin with. So.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, they mentioned in the community, you'll have 50 kilowatt charging, which is kind of like Tesla's urban chargers, or you'll have some of these different guys who'll have fast or slow DC fast charge, or AC potentially. And then for the super fast charging, of course, it's Electrify America, which is their partnership. Again, I mentioned earlier, my opinion so far here in 2021, not so hot. I think EA is nowhere near as good as supercharging from Tesla. So that is a downfall.
I will give EA props where EA has props due. So you get your first year of charging for free, which is a really nice thing. But also,
if you buy Lucid Air, you get 3 years, by the way.
Is it 3?
If you buy Air, you get 3 years free.
Okay, it must be the base. Then you only get a year. But either way, you have open sourced that. Well, Lucid has open sourced the CCS combo charger that they are going to use for Electrify America. So that is one of the open source patents that they've got available to them.
But CCS is a standard long before Lucid, right?
CCS is a standard, but their connector is not. So they build on the standard CCS charge connector. So they use the same pinning and everything, just like on Tesla, how the Tesla J plug is based on the J1702 charger, but it has a special mold around it, and it's designed for special housing.
Okay.
The same is true for the open source CCS charger from EA. You can still fit a normal CCS plug into it, but they've got their own special edition one.
Okay, good to know. I didn't even know about that. So yeah, here again in the marketing, they're going to tell you that the Electrify America is capable of faster speeds. That is true, and with 900 volt architecture, that could be true in theory, but I am not going to go as far as to say that is true today. I think in 2021, I'll take my Tesla Supercharge network all day, and it's not even close right now. But in the interest of all EVs, EV adoption, I pray that Electrify America and EVgo, all these guys, Blink, that they're all working hard at this and getting this dialed in, because we need this. We can't have every EV maker build out an entire network of charging. That's crazy. Only Tesla is probably going to ever do that. My prediction, well, Rivian's trying, but it's going to be a small number. It's not going to be like
Well, the
Tesla's.
Rivians is different. Rivians is going for a very niche market in the fact that they're looking for their adventure network. So they're going to be doing it in remote places that
Yeah.
aren't normally going to have a charger.
Very good point.
They're looking, in parks where you wouldn't normally see an Electrify America charging playground. It would be one that is going to be specifically for, the Rivian. So that's that kind of point. But
And by the way, the Rivian is also going to be CCS standard. So I think what's going to happen is that second mover advantage thing. Tesla had to go it alone. They forego the standards. They have their own plug point. And now you can't readily charge it you can't really charge with the CCS. They don't have that in North America. They will eventually, but it's kind of like Android and Apple. Apple stands alone, but Android, there's millions of phones, and 9 out of 10 phones are Android. So people who follow the CCS standard, you're going to eventually, I think, long term, I think 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to have way more options having a CCS plug than a Tesla plug. Just not today, because Tesla just has that first mover's advantage. Yep. You mentioned this before, the first greenfield new factory. This is their AMP1 factory in Casa Grande. It is accompanied by, they have their powertrain factory, which is kind of across the street, where they build the powertrains and they bring it in for the final assembly here. The first thing you have to know if you're investing in CCIV as it becomes Lucid Motors is that they have a factory. And here at this diagram, if you look, they're phase 1 complete. This is kind of like supercharger, Tesla's Gigafactory, where they built this out in modules, which is a smart way to do it because each contained module can build a car. And then as you have more modules, you can build more cars. This would be different than having like one step done here, one step done over here. And as a result, it's all or nothing. This is a smarter way to do it. But this means that they could build about 34,000 cars a year in phase 1. Phase 2, which would be the green bits you see as well, once they reach phase 2, they could build 90,000 units a year. And when they're at full rate capacity, they could build almost 400,000, 365,000 cars a year. So I say all this because they're not going to be phase 2 complete for quite a while. They're phase 1 complete today. This is early on. So even though they have a factory, they're still figuring it out. And I wouldn't be surprised if they delay shipping the car until really the end of 2021. You got to remember something. I heard this, by the way, Robert, I don't know how much you follow Twitter, but I'm going to switch over here. So part of why I wanted to make this video today is there are a couple of guys on Twitter who are so proud of themselves because they're calling Lucid a scam for data they're using the fact that their stock is down, CCIV, and also that they're delaying shipping the cars. Let's not forget that building cars is nearly impossible. It is really, really difficult to do.
It's expensive.
When was Rivian supposed to have their cars? Yeah, that too.
Oh, don't. So
a year ago?
I mean, I have one of the very, very first golden tickets for a Rivian. I think it was almost the day that they released it. I made my reservation. We were supposed to have them a year ago, just over a year ago now. COVID, of course, happened, and they pushed production back a little bit. We're only just now getting to finish the bodies in white, and we're just starting to get the real, run of them going. The first production models were only running through Illinois, less than 2 months ago. So a lot of the Rivians are just now starting to get ramped up. The problem with that is the fact that they're still trying to get their manufacturing details in order. Tesla had the exact same thing. They went at it a little bit easier because they had the Lotus Elise that they bought, and then when they had the Lotus Elise, then they were able to retrofit it, which is a much more efficient way to do it. But the first generation of the S and the S, the second generation S's, and the first generation of the 3s build the exact same way. Elon was credited as saying, with the 3s, it was a production nightmare because they couldn't get it to happen the way that they wanted it to. And it's very true. Building it is a manufacturing nightmare. For anyone in manufacturing, what he's talking about, because building a production line and building things to go through a production line in a timely, efficient, and cost-effective manner is a nightmare. And I think I think everyone's going to realize real quickly how big of a nightmare it is. So
yeah, and we talk about all this because, again, I think they're going to have delays, but that doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that this is a difficult task, and they have their work cut out for them. I think they're being factory complete, having the factory ready is a huge first step. If you're trying to sell cars, you don't have a factory, I can't take you seriously. At this point, though, we still don't have any cars shipped. So I want to see them. I want to email them all the time and tell them, hey, when you have a
So
car coming out of that
just to
factory, I want
clarify,
to drive it.
they don't have any cars shipped, but they do have cars built. They have
Yeah.
engineering samples built.
I have a video where I walk
Last
around their
count, I
factory and
believe,
there's hundreds of them. Yeah.
yeah, at last count, I believe they had about 50 of the engineering samples built, and those are various stages of complete. I think there's 8 stages of engineering completeness. Number one being, the absolute looks like a Toyota Camry, but it's got some of the hardware in it. At the same time, you've got other things that are running through it all the way up through the LiDAR, and the high-vis systems, and the GPS systems, and the rest of it. So it definitely is going to come into play later on. So
Yeah, well said. So again, yes, it's going to be a difficult road ahead, but if you believe in this company, that shouldn't scare you. That's not really a big concern. They've mentioned
So
how
I
they
want
chose.
to draw your point to this screen here real quickly, Ricky.
Sure.
To what you were saying earlier about the eye system. They do mention NVIDIA. I mean, they do mention it a little bit. I mean, you can see that they've got it there. Nice thing is, I wouldn't have put it in this slide deck, but okay, fine, we'll put NVIDIA on this slide deck. But they do show that they've got everything they need to do production and delivery. And that's the important part, is they've got the delivery system. They've got a main line rail system there, to get them to the ports in California, to get them into the ports in Mexico, and then to get them across the states to Florida and the rest. So I think they're well positioned, for a distribution point as well.
Fantastic. I didn't even see the NVIDIA until just now. But yeah, Intel, NVIDIA, they're talking about IBM from some of their cloud and consulting kind of services they provide. Nike, that's interesting. We'll see what they do with Nike.
Well, Nike lives in Nevada as well.
Right. I think
Sorry,
the headquarters
Arizona.
is in Oregon, right?
I believe they're in Phoenix.
Okay. So they have a projection here of the yearly growth of the luxury market. This kind of stuff does interest me. This is kind of like when people say, this is a big billion-dollar industry, even 1%. Understood. So they talk about by 2030, Lucid anticipates a run rate of 500,000 units, representing 4% market share of a total addressable market of 15 million units in 2030. Interesting. Again, huge forecast, 9 years into the future. So that's really all I can look at that. They talk about kind of the planned market share. It's going to be, they're saying it's going to be pretty small because, again, Tesla has a huge advantage. And as more cars get out, it's going to be a smaller and smaller share. Now, this is the part that I didn't particularly enjoy. So this is good. No, they talk about the production rate, right? This is the future models. Very much like this is, again, Model S, Model X, Model 3. They know what they're doing. Their strategy is sound. It's been done before. We can kind of look at it that way. Now, here, if you're an investor, you got to be aware of this. You got to understand that they're not going to be making money until realistically 2024 and 2025. And by then, they'll have...
And even then, just barely.
Right. And 2020, and again, this was the same thing with Tesla. Tesla was not exactly rolling in dough. Building cars is hard. This is why you have to be kind of crazy to do it. But thank God some people do, because otherwise we'd be without vehicles. Now, here is a very interesting slide. So this is for people who are, for the CCIV people who are sad today with all their losses and stuff. This is going to be an interesting slide. So I will tell you, I did buy some shares. Nothing that I couldn't, nothing I would lose sleep if I lost. And the reason why is when you buy CCIV yesterday, you didn't know this number. You didn't know how many outstanding shares there would be. And that's kind of crazy. Realistically, to say that if you buy a stock without knowing that number, knowing what kind of a percent of the company you have with each share, you're kind of just shooting in the dark. And that's kind of how it played out. So anyways, now you know when you do the CCIV math, if you just do 1.6 billion times the price currently for the per share, you can quickly do a rough, ballpark figure of their market cap. And why does that matter? Well, if Lucid is around a $50 billion market cap, that puts them at more valuable than Ford, right? I think they were targeting 10 to 20 billion as a good figure. I think that's solid. I think Rivian and Lucid, just their IP, the fact that they have smart engineering teams that are doing this, I put both of them maybe in that range. So even at $35 that CCIV is trading for today, that computes about a 50 billion plus market cap. I do think there's going to be fluctuations and stuff.
Great market cap. I think it's overvalued. But if you look at most of the EV space, you will see that most of them are overvalued and extremely bullish.
Yeah, I think that just means that you have to pay to play. Like when there's that much anticipation and excitement, I think EVs are the future. And if this company has no baggage, they're not competing with cannibalizing their old gas sales like Ford and Honda and Toyota. They're just a fresh new company with a brand new factory. There's reasons to be excited. So that's where they trade higher. You can call it overvalued if you want, but the reality is that's where they're trading at. But these kinds of things matter, especially if you're thinking about getting in and stuff. I don't want to get into that because that's up to you guys as far as what kind of a risk tolerance you have. But we'll close this out here shortly by talking about this. This is the part that I really did not like about their presentation. They talk about a 2022 EV revenue breakdown, and they're saying that the discount, their entry valuation is at a discount compared to Tesla at only 5 times. But here's the problem with that statement. That is based on an acquisition of a $12 billion company, 11.75, at a $10 share. But because of the dilution from the SPAC and also from the PIPE, we're actually looking at maybe like 5 times this number. So really, you're buying at like 25x here, not 5x. They're using numbers that are very optimistic. This is the 2022 forecast, which they mentioned. Is it up here? When you talk about forecasting this far out, it's very scary. I don't like that. I don't invest on this. These last few slides in this deck, to me, matter nothing. I'm not making any of my decisions based on these slides. I'm making my slide decisions based on the engineering portion above. I genuinely think that this company has the tech, they have the know-how, and they are ready to build a car that's going to be fantastic. That Lucid Air is a gorgeous car. It is a desirable car, which is something that you want. And they've got the engineering to be able to deliver on a car with good range, right? None of this 200-mile business. Who's buying a car with 200 miles? My car has 300 miles of range on a good day, and I want more. My next car, I want 400 or 500 minimum because I do road trips and I don't want to have to deal with this, especially if it's cold, you're going uphill, it eats into your range. 500 miles, 400 miles is a great place to be. They've got it. They've got all the tech and the IP and the patents. They've got some challenges, Electrify America, but that is a weakness today. But as they're working on building cars,
but it's going to be a strength in the future.
Right. While they're doing that, EA is investing in this architecture and infrastructure and doing it for free. So that's where weakness today, strength in the future, I do believe. Second mover advantage, as Peter mentioned, is going to be a real thing. The wild card here is their self-driving tech. And this is what I'm going to really focus on when I talk to them, is they don't mention Mobileye, which is the partner that they had. Mobileye is a subsidiary of Intel, I mentioned in my video, but they were the ones driving a lot of their self-driving tech and software and the full self-driving data aggregation and kind of like what Tesla's doing. They didn't mention that here. And I'm wondering if they're thinking about going a different direction. They have some slides with NVIDIA. Are they going to have like an SoC from NVIDIA and do their own? We don't know. I want to know that because if you want to trade at $700 billion valuation with 500,000 cars shipped like Tesla does, the reason why you do that is because of all the self-driving tech and the power walls and the solar glass, all these other products which they need to kind of showcase. So currently, promise of one car that's about to go. They got the Gravity coming up soon. ESS, we'll see how, we don't know much about that in terms of are they really actively making them and shipping them today. Battery sale constraints are a big deal, right? Tesla's already told you they don't have enough batteries right now to make 10 million cars.
They're trying to get as many as they can, and that's everyone's problem.
Everyone
on that, so.
And you remember that LG Chem has not been able to deliver on some of their deals with like VW and GM or Ford because of shortages of battery supply. So these are all problems as an investor, the risk. You have to have clear in your head if you're thinking about going forward. All that being said, I'm still bullish on this company. I think Lucid is here to stay. I think it's going to be a bumpy road. So if you're an investor, you have to have an iron stomach. And if you don't, then you might just have to wait on the sideline until they reach volume of production that you're comfortable with. And then you can start investing. Or if you believe in them from the beginning like I do, you could buy now and hold, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be holding the shares long term, I think.
Same here. I bought them at 18, and I'm gonna hold them out for a while and see how they come along across the pipe. I'm probably expecting at least 4 to 5 years on them before they really start to take off. I'm very bullish on them as well. They're definitely a long-term, long-game hold. So,
yeah. So, really quickly in closing, I want to make this like super, super clear. The engineering and the investment business side of it are two different things, and you should judge them as two different things. I say it because, look, they're about to build a car. They need money. You need money to build cars. It's super expensive, right? So they now have $4 billion more in the bank. They're ready to go and build this car. It makes sense. You have a factory ready. Now it's time to build cars. You got to get the robots in there and spend all the time in the programming and everything else, buy the process. So they have that money to do that now. The fact that they had to raise that funding is just the nature of business. And you can have issue with, their valuation, the SPAC blew up. Well, Lucid didn't have anything to do with CCIV prices going from $10 to $60 and back to $30. They had nothing to do with that. That's just the speculation of the market and people trying to make a quick buck. So separate these things out. There's
a lot
few
of that
different
came
pieces
from
to this.
GME and from Reddit users, and all of a sudden everyone now having an interest in stocks like that. So,
and SPACs in general. Because this happened with Nikola, it happened with QuantumScape. It happened with DraftKings, and DraftKings I think is going to be a very profitable company. So it doesn't really tell you that much all by itself, but there's a couple of different pieces to it. I'm investing in the engineering of this thing. I think they now have the money, however they did it. Maybe the SPAC is also kind of seen as a kind of a dirty move compared to going traditional IPO. It is a lot quicker, and right now, if they can get $4 billion in the next couple of months in time to build cars, you're going to be happy when they have cars out on the road, as opposed to going 8 or 10 months or who knows how long for a traditional IPO and getting just pushed further and further back. And this race for EVs is catching up. Things are getting hot. So I think timing is important.
Timing is everything, and I think they pulled the trigger right at the correct time. I think they definitely align themselves to get that SPAC as quickly as possible so they can get in on spring 2021 when they're getting ready to roll the first set of cars. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the full ticker transfer and everything happening by the end of spring this year, and that cash in hand. So
wonderful. So anybody who's watched to this point, leave me a comment and let me know you did, because it is over an hour. But I really think we've touched on the entire thing. And I believe we brought clarity and a little bit of an equal perspective to this, because I think people are kind of a little bit flummoxed by all of it, what's going on. When CCIV goes from 60 to 35, people think there's something going wrong or this is a bad deal. It's none of those things. It probably should have never been 60. And it's exactly. And there's still future speculation built in when they go CCIV in that whole period. There's going to be more of this kind of stuff. So you do you and figure out what your stomach is capable of doing. But I'm going to tell you right now, have you gotten much work done today besides looking at your stock app?
My boss watches this, so I will refuse to actually acknowledge that answer.
Well, the point is, you had work today. I didn't have work today, and I'll tell you, it is a major stress. So all that in mind, I hope this is helpful, guys. Thank you so much for watching episode number 9, dude. We're 9 in. We're about to hit 10. I think we'll try to take this live as soon as we can. But thank you guys for watching. Please leave us a comment. Let us know. We want this to be a community. So we're hoping to get a lot of you subscribers because we want to make a Discord chat where all of us can talk about investing. We can talk about stuff that's happening and strategize and scheme together. And we'll make a little Patreon so you can support us while we do this too. Long term, that's what we're planning on doing. We're just hoping to have enough of you guys that leave us comments. Let's see, Robert, how many people leave us a comment about having watched to this point. And those people who are serious about investing in the future you want to believe in, we will have a Patreon shortly and we'll start going live and everything else.
Yep.
So until next time, guys, have a good one. Keep your head, get a beverage of your choice and chill out, take a nap, things are going to be okay. I think the entire market has been down, but
we will have a correction and we will be good to go. So
absolutely. So keep calm and carry on.
later, guys.
All right.